Welcome everyone. Welcome to an Agilix hands-on web session. We're glad to have you join us today on the call, and we'll be looking at the ARC to Xtra reporting migration. I'm Alessio Camera, and I'll be guiding you through today. Before we begin, I'll introduce you to the Agilix team on the call with me. We'll then dive straight into a hands-on session. We'll be migrating a purchase order report template from ARC to Xtra. After the session, there'll be an opportunity for some questions and answers where you can post your questions to the team, and we'll do our very best to answer all of them in the time. Please do hold your questions for afterwards. There is a Q&A function which is available on Teams. If it does not want to do its thing, then we'll unmute you and allow for opportunity for either typing in the chat or asking your questions verbally. So as mentioned, I'm Alessio, connecting from Pretoria, South Africa. Joining me is Patrick Murray. Patrick is connecting from the UK and is our Unit 4 ERP solution architect and reporting guru. Finally, we also have Tiffany White, who is presenting for us today. Tiffany is connecting from Victoria and is our Agilix implementation consultant and reporting guru. If everything is ready on your side, Tiffany, you're welcome to take us away.
Good morning for me. Good afternoon, probably for most of you. Early evening. I'm Tiffany White, and today I'm going to walk you through a simple ARC to Xtra conversion. First, we will look at the ARC, the RPX file, and then we'll start the conversion process. I would recommend if you're going to convert any reports or you're going to have a consultant convert any reports, try to be on the latest report engines. Today, I'm going to be showing the conversion on 96318, but the newest one is 96410. So the reporting tool is with the conversion process has gotten better and better throughout all the releases. So totally recommend not trying to do it on one of the lower nines. Okay, I'm going to turn my camera off now and I'm going to start the conversion process for you. So this is our P001 report. This report is for a purchase order within UBW. It goes for the test purchase order, copy purchase order, and the regular purchase order. So it's important before you start your conversion is to actually understand what you're converting. So I'm just going to show you some things to look out for on the RPX report so you know when you bring it over, little problems you may have when you're trying to convert. Okay, here I've color-coded a couple items on the report surface. Here in the yellows, these are what we call formulas within the ARC report. I can tell they're formulas because the names start with the @ symbol. So if I look over in the property toolbox, any item that starts with the @ symbol will be a formula. And the formula just means data is collected behind the scenes in the script and it's put into this field. So whether it be an address, whether it just be a caption, whatever it is, something's happening and going into what they call a formula. Okay. I can also see there's sections on here. There's a group headers and footers. They're alpha order IDs, but there are 3 sections. These will all be copied over in the conversion process. I also see there's 2 items here in red text. And if I look over in the property toolbox, the visibility is false. So an ARC report, if you needed to have any logic in the background happening in a section, in this instance, my delivery address has logic happening in the background that if something about the delivery term happens, the delivery address is not going to be visible. So in order to use the delivery terms for this logic, it has to appear in this section, but we don't need to see it in this section, but we needed to have it. So a lot of times you might open up your ARC reports, and especially if it was an aggressive consultant, I believe a lot of us made them red and invisible, so you know why they're there. So my green one over here, again, I highlighted this because this is going to have an expression behind it when we go over to the Xtra report, and we're going to have logic happening on for its visibility properties. So this is a surface. This is not a crazy. This is a very simple purchase order. You might open yours up and scream, but this is simple. Okay, so I'm going to go to edit, and I'm going to edit my script. I want to look and see what's happening in the background here, what's going to be converted over. Okay, the first things I see here is there's AGR use parameters. When we had the ARC tool and we created way back in the day, when we created them, it would bring over all of the parameters from the server process that you had. Whether they needed to be in the report or not, they would all come over. When we convert over to the Xtra report, only those parameters that are used within the report SQL somewhere will be brought over. So in this case, there's only 3 parameters that will be brought over to the RERX file. One will be client, one will be rep_nam, and the other will be the help table. How do I know that? I know that by looking through my code down here. I can see in this main SQL, I can see there's a help table, the help tab parameter. And I can see there's the client parameter. And if I scroll down just a bit further, I can see there's the parameter for the rep_nam. So only these 3 parameters will be copied over. I'm going to scroll back up. And if I go down a little bit here, I can see I have some formulas initialized. I have about 10 or so initialized here. There was only 2, if you remember, the yellow fields on the front screen, on the front of the report. There were only 2 formulas that are showing on the report surface. So once again, similar to the parameters, only these 2 formulas, the tester copy or the main ADI with faux, will be copied over to the Xtra report. So even though we are using these initialized formulas in this SQL down here, if I look down, I can see they've all been initialized and they're all available for use. They've created the formula down here. They're all used here to build the formula for the main address formula, but they're not used on the report surface, so they will not be copied over. Okay, it's also important to note when you're looking at your different formulas and what goes into them, you will have to treat them differently when you're converting them over in the Xtra report. So anything that is in a SQL statement, anything tapping the database, cannot be done in an expression editor. It has to be done within the RERX container, either through SQL, you can have a browser pulling the information, or you can use macros. So I'm going to choose when we do start the conversion process, we're going to end up using this formula. We're going to put it into a macro, an AGR get address macro for us. Now, if I go down to the second one, we have the parameter rep_nam, and we're saying if it's P007, we're going to have this label say test purchase order or copy purchase order or purchase order. Because this does not use SQL to drive and get into the database, we can just use the expression editor within an Xtra report to make this happen. So it'll be pretty much exactly like this here, but it'll be an expression editor within Xtra. Okay, so that's not very much in the front of the report here, but you also have to remember things happened in sections on the RPX file. So if I'm going to pull the drop-down box up here into the object, and I see all the different sections available to me. Any section here that has a star means there's some text behind it that something may be happening. So I'm going to start with my group header order ID. If I click on that, I can see there's an if statement saying if deliv terms text equals FOB, then I want the delivery address to be true, else it's going to be false. So this is the one that we were talking about, the green field on the front of the report, the delivery address. So this is important because we're going to have some logic in our Xtra report to make this visible or not visible. The logic does not carry over. So I do know in my head now, I'm going to have some logic for the visibility property in the Xtra report. And there will be a field on there that's brought over that shows me I need to do something with the visible property. Okay, so I've seen that. I'm going to go down now to my details section and see what's happening in there. Okay, now in here, I can see there's something about the report lines, and they're making it equal detail height. So to know what this is doing, back in the day, when we made these reports, if you started building them, then people had word wrap happening on a field, the detail would get bigger, but the lines wouldn't grow with the detail. So this is how we got around making the lines grow in the detail section, was creating this information here on the before print of the report. Now this will not be copied over at all. There's logic is gone. You wouldn't even know it existed. You will not see it there. But we're not going to use this anymore. We're going to change all our little lines on our purchase order to be crossband boxes and lines. Okay, so I do know I'm going to do something with this section. And if I go down to my group footer for my order ID, I see there's something saying a caption is going to equal total in and what? Total in currency. So really, this is just a concatenation of some text and the currency field that's coming from our data set. So I do know now I'm going to have to do this myself in Xtra. This does not come over at all either. Okay, I think I'm pretty familiar with my RPX file. It looks pretty good. I'm feeling ready to do my conversion. So I'm going to close this down. I'm going to open up an RERX container here, the Report Studio. And all I need to do is get my ARC report, and I can simply drag and drop it into this white surface up here, or I can go File, Import, and add my existing file. I need to go and find it in here. Okay, so next step here to get the converter started is a simple double click of the RPX file and a saying yes to our conversion. So if I click on yes, I now have 4 files within this pane. I have an XML file. If I click on that and have a look at it, I have 2 data sets created. There's no data in it because we have not connected to a data source. One is the PO main, so this is the driving query. And then there's a parameters. Every report will always have a parameter data set built. It'll only ever be 1 line, but it'll be as many fields as many parameters as you do have in your report. Okay, here I can see there's 20 columns. In the beginning, before we are connected to our data source, the only columns you'll see on here would be the fields on the surface of the RPX file. Would just be the text fields on the surface up here. So there's 20 fields that are bringing in data. But once we connect to the data source, we will be able to see way more fields that are coming from this query. Okay, so what do I need to do? My next steps are, coming down here, we have a text file created. If I open that up, this is my driving query and my declared parameters. So I'm just going to take this information, copy it, open up my RESQL, and paste it in here. So now I need to give some values to my parameters. My client is going to be EN. My rep name, I'm just going to choose a copy one for now, PO03. And I need my help tab. So in order to get your help table, if you have a help table in your process, you have to run the server process from UBW. In this case, it was a print copy purchase order I'm doing. And you put on the save temp table parameter and save the report. So because you're converting from an ARC report, you're lucky because the log file looks great and it brings in your help tables easily to define and see which ones are. So the purchase order does come along with 3 help tables: help tab T, and help tab D. If I look back at my report, I only need to bring in help tab. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to copy that and bring it into my parameter. So I have my help tab, my client, my rep name. Now all I need to do is log in and refresh the report to get a nice data set to start my conversion. Perfect. No errors is always good. So now I can say I have 289 rows in my data set, and my columns have gone up by 42. I used to have 20, now I have 62. And I can see my parameters. There's still just the 1 row. That's all I'll ever have. But there's now my parameters within the data set. Okay, so now I'm going to go and I'm going to open up my REPX file, my Xtra report, to see if the converter has done its magic and how good it looks. Okay. So here's our report. Looks pretty similar, if not exact. So we have the same colors. We can see our 2 formula fields. I can see my delivery address. It's in green still. We do not see those fields in the red. They do not get copied over because they were invisible. They were never turned visible. There was no logic behind it. So we're not going to have all the clutter of not visible items coming over to our Xtra reports, which is fabulous. Okay. So I'm going to pull this out so we can see all these Explorer, our field lists, our Report Explorer, and our Properties Toolbox. Okay. So what I want to do, first of all, when I first come in here is go up to Tools, and I want to synchronize the data. If I don't do that, I don't have all the data available to me just yet. If I scroll down, I can see there's parameters, but there's nothing in them. So just go up and synchronize your data. Once you do that, you can see I now have my parameters there. If I open up my data set here for my main, if I scroll down a little bit to the F's, I can see there was 2 formula fields brought in. They're always prefaced with the F underscore. So I will need to do something with these 2. And down a little bit further is FR underscore. This one is not a real formula. It's basically telling me that there's something on the visibility property. So I know I need to go change the logic behind that. So let's first of all, let's just try to run a report and see what happens. I click on preview, I get some errors. So you'll get the errors one at a time. So if I went back now and I fixed the tester copy, the next one would come along, which is probably the address. Or I could open up the log file and I can see what all my errors are right away. And in this case, they will all be the formulas. So we have our tester copy, we have our delivery address, visibility, and our main ADDI with info, with phone number, sorry. So we know we have to go and do something to fix these errors to make that work properly. Okay, so I'm going to go back. Now, if you remember, we said that the address was originally coming in a formula. It came from SQL. So I know I can't just stay within this Xtra report and get that address anymore. I have to do that within the RERX container. So my choice right now is I'm going to take away this address. I'm not even going to have the formula for it. I'm just going to delete that. And I'm going to delete the formula over on the right-hand side. Okay, so that error is going to be gone. And in just a bit, we're going to go over and use a macro to get the new address for the client. Okay, our next field over here, the tester copy, if you remember, that was where we said if repnam equals P003, P007, we'd have the label say whatever it needs to say. So I'm going to click on my tester copy. I'm going to edit the expression. And I'm going to say if what? I'm going to scroll on down to get my parameters. If my repnam equals P007, then I'm just going to copy this here, sorry. Then it's going to be a test purchase order. Else, if the repnam, again, equals P003, then I would like it to equal copy purchase order. Else, I want it to say just purchase order. Okay, I see no syntax errors here, so I should be good to go. And click OK. And if I try running now, the only error I should see is about the delivery address. There should just be one error left. So delivery address visible, one validation error. If I look at it, I can see I have copy purchase order because my parameter for repnam was declared as P003. If I change this right now to P007 and I refresh my data, and I look back at the report, review again, it should say test purchase order. So I know that expression is working the way I like it to. Okay, so now let's go and get rid of this next error, which is our delivery address. That is this field right here, it's telling me. So I click on the delivery address, I click on the 2 blue cogs here. I'll scroll down to the visibility. So I can see right now it's visible status is not visible. And I go over to the right, I'm going to click and there's visible expression and I'm going to choose before print and take out what's there. And all I'm going to say is our logic in our ARC report was if delivery terms equals FOB, visible will be true. So I'm going to look for my deliv terms. There they are. Let's say equals FOB. That's all I need to do. I say OK. Now, if I preview it, all errors should be gone. Nope, sorry. Go back here. Now I'm just going to delete this field here because I do not need it. Just delete. And if I preview, now all errors will be gone. So I now have my address showing here. So it's FOB, so that's perfect. It's visible. I just scroll through until I find one that's not FOB. So there's CIP and the one before it. My delivery address is blank. So perfect. It seems to be running great. Okay, so now we would like to go and get our address. Excuse me. So here I'm just going to add a single row query. And I'm going to call it client address. And I'm going to use the macro for AGR get address. Okay. Now if I look at this, I need a client, attribute ID, dim value, address type, and sequence known language are optional. So for my client, I'm going to use my parameter up here. So I'm going to preface the client with $? client. My attribute ID for client is A3. My dim value, again, will be client. I'll be using reference to my parameter. And my address type will be the general address, which is address type 1. I'm not going to use the sequence number or language. I'll delete that. If I refresh my data, I now see that I have another data set, client address. It has the one row, and it has all the address information for my client EN. So now I want to put this into my field on my report surface. To do that, I need to synchronize my data so the field shows up. So I can see here I have my data set client address, and I'm going to go down till I find the formatted address. And I'm just going to drag and drop that field over. So your options here too, you can pull and you can drag and drop fields into different controls, or you can pull down on the arrow and pull down on the other arrow and choose your fields from here. Okay, so I'm going to view my report and see how it's coming along. Great, I have my client address. It looks fabulous. So I'm happy with that. I have my test or copy purchase order up top. I have my delivery address working great. So what else can I see on my report surface that I might need to do? I'm seeing a little bit of funky formatting here. I don't really want the time coming on my order date. I'm noticing that the numbers down here aren't really how I want them to be. I don't need the 3 decimals I want to. So I'm going to check out the formatting on these. So if I go up to the order date and I click on the little arrow and go down, I see there's no formatting on the string. So I'm going to click on the format and then choose date and time. And I can choose my formatting from here. So I'm just going to use the day, month, year at the top. Say OK. And if I preview it now, that should be corrected. Looks fabulous. OK. My amounts down here, they're a little bit different. These amounts, the formatting string from the VB from ARC did not come over properly or is not recognized by Xtra. So if I click on the 3 dots here, I can see it has a format string, but it's not recognized. So as soon as I open up the field, it says the format string is not contained in any of the standard categories. So I'm just going to make sure I pick the right categories for what I want the number to come out as. I'm going to pick the N here and OK. Do that as well with the rev price. My quantity, I believe, is no decimals. I'm going to pick N0, and I'll get my sum per amount and do that properly as well. Okay. And if I preview it again, my decimals are great. I'm enjoying what it's looking like. It's pretty fast. I've done well. Now I'm going to start focusing on the lines here. So I can see there's a little break in the line here. We're not going to have that once we use crossband boxes and lines. So just bear with me for a minute. We're going to delete all our lines in this report. So I'm going to start up here and I'm going to delete. It's a lot easier to use over here in the Report Explorer to click on your lines over here than to click on them perhaps in this section. So it's harder to get at. So I'm just going to start deleting all the lines in the top section. And then in my details section. And in my group footer. Okay. So up in the top section, I also have a shape that I no longer want. So I'm going to delete this shape. And I'm going to copy this bottom line up to the top. To be the underline. And I'm going to go grab crossband box. Pop it on my report. And then I'm just going to get crossband line. And draw that on. When we draw it on, it ends up being really fat. So we just need to go over to the properties toolbox and we're just going to change the width down. The default is 3. It doesn't go thinner than that. So we're going to do that. We have our line. Oops. And now I'm just going to copy that line. Even when you copy paste, the line still is fat. We'll just have to change the property of it after. So go further. Okay, as simple as that. So if I look at it now, I can do that one very well, but you can see all the lines go through down to the bottom where they need to be. There's no logic behind it. They just go wherever they need to be. The next thing I think I would like to add to this report is terms and conditions. So back using the ARP reports, if you wanted terms and conditions, you had to have them basically embedded in the report. So I'm just going to quickly show you a really harsh terms and conditions we had for a client one time. So there was the choices. They could have different terms and conditions depending on whatever it was about the purchase order or the supplier. So we had pages and pages and pages and pages embedded in the report for terms and conditions, and there's logic behind whether we're going to show it here or we're not going to show it here. But every time something changed in their terms and conditions, someone would have to come in, find where they had to change it, update the terms and conditions, and make sure it went through correctly. Now we have a nice new PDF merge that we can bring into a report. We can store our terms and conditions in a document archive. That way, from the front end, you can change your terms and conditions and they're updated, and you don't have to worry about going to each report separately and finding the right page to change. So I'm going to put in my PDF merge field here. And now I'm going to go and get my terms and conditions. If I go back, I'm going to show you in UBW. I've created a document type called webinar doc, and I've just made it connected to the attribute ID for the client code. And I have my indexes of client code, and I've added an index called file name. So now when I go to the attribute master file for client, and I go to the document archive, in my webinar doc folder, I can see I have a terms and conditions 1, terms and conditions 2. If I look at the document properties, I can see my file name. I've called this one TNC1. And my second one down, I've called TNC2. Okay, so in my RERX, I'm going to add to the main SQL. Depending on some logic, I'm going to choose the terms and conditions should be terms and conditions 1 or terms and conditions 2. Okay, so I'm going back to my RERX container. I'm just going to add a case statement on here. And I'm going to go case when we're going to go back to the delivery terms again. So I'm going to say h.deliv terms. And we're going to say if it equals FOB, then I want it to be T and C1. else I want it to be T and C2. And I'm going to just call it PDF attach. Okay. Now I want to be able to use this in a macro. So down below my single row query, I'm going to add a loop. And what am I'm going to loop my main table, and I'm going to group it by order ID. And I'm going to pull in my PDF attach field. I'm going to say, which one is it? And I'm going to use it in my macro to get the correct terms and conditions for the order. So I'm going to loop P001 main, and I'm going to group by order ID. And I'm going to add child rows. Yep. Child rows, and I'm just going to call it PDF. So this is the name of my data set here, PDF. And below that, I'm going to use my macro to get a document. So I'm going to APR get document. Okay. And this is my document macro. So I'm going to choose my client. Again, I'm going to use my parameter for client. My doc type is the webinar doc. Webinar doc. And then I have my indexes. So I have 2 client indexes. So I'm going to use my client again. Twice. And my third index is the file name. So this is where I'm going to be pulling in the field for PDF attach. So to reference that field, I use a $, colon, and PDF attach. Okay. I'm going to end my rows and my group and my loop. Okay. And if I refresh my data set or refresh the data, I'll have a new data set called PDF. Okay. So now that's available to me. I'm going to go back to my report. I'm going to synchronize the data. And I'm going to go into my P001 main, open out a PDF, and I'm going to pull the document over and pop it into that field. So now when I go to preview my data, when the green is up here and it's visible, I'll see one terms and conditions. And when there's no data, I will see the other terms and conditions. So I have purple terms and conditions. And here I don't have any terms and conditions. I'm sorry, I don't have any delivery address, so I expect to see different terms and conditions. And I do. I have blue. So that was pretty simple to do there. I didn't have to do anything in the report surface except bring in one field for all of my, this could be a 3,000 page document. It would fit in here. Okay, so now I'm pretty happy with my report. I think it looks like it should. It's going to go off for testing. So what I do here is I just need to save this file. I don't save it outside of the RERX, so I just click save. I close it down. And the next thing you need to make sure of is down this box down here. Right now, if you notice, it's still going to be pulling the RPX file. So if we save this right now into the customized reports folder and we try to run from UVW, it would fail because we haven't updated anything on the RPX, so it would just fail miserably. So I got to make sure I picked this file. I can always rename this. If you don't like the name it's given, you can rename it, not a problem. I'm going to change this to be the REPX file. And then you want to make sure you save it in your customized reports folder and, of course, test. You can, if you choose, you can get rid of these extra files if you'd like, or you can leave them in there. I usually like to leave the RPX file around for a while just in case there's problems, things don't go according to plan, things are missing. I always have the copy here and I know it's easy to grab and be able to look at to see what I may have missed. Okay. And I think that's the end of what I have to show you today. So I would like to come back on camera and we would love to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Tiffany. Excellent.
Thank you.
Right, we could do some questions, any questions which you might have. I do know that Teams has been giving a few challenges with regards to the Q&A functionality, so you're welcome to also post them into the chat for us. Alternatively, please could you use the raise hand option, and we'll call you out and you can ask your questions. If there are no questions, then we'll give you 15 minutes back or so, but hopefully there are a couple of you who have got something to ask. Right, I see there is a question over here. Yes, this is something I did not mention up front. I'm sorry about that. This recording will be made available at the end of the webinar in the next day or so. You will receive another email with a link to the recording. Any other questions regarding any of the technical items or approaches, or in general, anything about the ARC to Xtra migration? Oh, my chat is freezing. I will read it out in a moment.
Yeah, I can read it out for you, Alice. And so it says, is there a deadline when these need to be completed by? I think really needs to be completed by just now. I think there's that's why there's a push in Unit 4 putting the instruction in the release notes and in the Xtra software itself in the latest version. But again, if you're running an older version, it's not going to have that issue. It's not going to have any information in there. But yeah, I'd say if you can get on it straight away, it's best to do it straight away.
I see there's another question over here regarding the conversion tool. In addition to the one that we were showing, the conversion tool is actually part of the reporting engine. So there's no additional tool that I'm aware of which we can use to do this. It would be the Unit 4 Report Studio, which you have to use. Right, there's another question regarding the conversion of the files. Are we supposed to convert the files from RPX to REX? So the RPX is the old ARC format of reports, which has been discontinued and shelved. It's no longer supported. So the RERX is a new, what they call a composite report, where the data file, as well as the report definition, which is the Xtra report, gets saved all together. So yes, we would want to repackage them all as a brand new REX report and ensure the ARC reports are now RPX reports.
Okay, so I'm just going to pop back in. I'm just going to share my screen again.
Sure. I see there's another question maybe with that, Tiffany, regarding bindings.
Yeah. And so, Julie, I'm not sure what level of the report engine you were on when you converted. It was not great a while ago, so you might have had difficulties with the binding. So I can't really 100% speak to that because the report engine changes every time. I don't know if you have, Patrick's had those issues with the bindings.
Yeah, I've had it before. It was on an older report engine, the one you have, and possibly the one I have instead. I don't know if that's the same, Julie. It was on the Unit 4 community asking about it. It's a really hit and miss thing. But if you do, I think it's the way it shows certain formulas and certain things when you go into it. But yeah, it's the older ones that did it. The newer ones don't seem to do it for some reason.
Yeah,
so
it has gotten so much better. So
yeah, so I know it was an issue, but it might have got better and might have not got better, to be honest with you.
Okay. So I'll have a quick look at the visibility again here. In the newer report engine, or the newer report engines, I think it's too early for me. This has changed. The looks have changed. So you might be looking at something completely different when you open up your report engine. You can always remember, if you can't find the field you're looking for, you can type in your text here. So I do know that the visibility is on the two blue cogs here, and it's right at the bottom. So I can see when it's not ticked on, the visible property is set to false. And over to the right, and this has been an issue, on my screen, I can't see there's actually boxes over on the right because my color of my, the color of my monitors is not great. Can you see the boxes from like on the, can you see the little boxes on the right hand side here?
I don't see them on my screen here.
You can't see them. No. So they do exist, but it's really hard if your color is terrible. So I'm going to click over here so I can see that it says visible expression. I'm going to click, The visible expression comes up. I'm going to click on before print. And all I want to do here, just wait for the box to come up. In my RPX, it was basically if my delivery terms was FOB, I wanted my address to be visible. If it wasn't, I didn't want it to be. So by default, the field is set to not visible. And I just have this in the background saying delivery terms equals FOB. That's all I need to do. And once it sees that, the field will turn visible. It could be a lot more complex. I could have if this, else. I could have a lot more in here. This is just a simple if it equals this, make it visible. Or else it will just stay back at the default, not visible. Is that okay, Julie? Do you want more information on that? Or great, thank you.
So Custard wrote, we are currently on milestone 6, about to test milestone 7/11. Should we wait until ERP 7 before converting the reports files, or does this matter about the aggressive version? I don't think it really matters, and you may be a bit different, Tiffany. I don't think it really, to a point, matters about the report version. It's more about the report engine version.
Yeah.
But I would say, yeah, if you're going to do them, if you're still in milestone 6, wait to milestone 7 at that point. Then it just means you do them once and you don't need to go and retest. Don't have to test them heavily and convert them and stuff like that. So ERP 7 may be the best way of doing it. So if you have a test system there, could be an opportunity to go out there and do it.
I would definitely, because you're upgrading, I would wait till after, because it's best to do a like for one. So you're not, so you could actually see that things are working in milestone 7 with your reports the same. You're not changing everything, so you wouldn't know if there was an error, what the error was. So I would say wait for that one reason. Plus also, if you're on milestone 6, you're probably on an older report engine, I'm assuming. So yeah, I would definitely wait if you're upgrading soon.
There's another question there. Which milestone was the RPX being unsupported? I don't think it's really a milestone version. It's a report engine version that it kind of defunct some effectively. I would say it's been unsupported for quite a while, a number of years, well, maybe about a year or 2 years, but Unit 4 haven't really bit the bullet and said, we're not doing this, this is it. But they have done it recently, obviously, in the new report engine. It is in the documents, it is in the actual screens. It shows you and tells you it's using the API, the web API to connect it rather than the web service. So that's all been done. So it's not so much in a milestone version, it's a report engine version. I would say maybe at 9.5, 9.6, it was starting to be non-supported, because I know Unit 4 would come back and say, we don't really support this at this version, or it's an old report or whatever, because ARC was in its infancy, but it was still there available.
See, thank you, Patrick. Yeah, see, there's another one over here. Are all REREX files 64-bit server queue compatible?
I would say yes, but obviously the thing is with the back in the day when people were converting up to ARC reports, they would take the ARC report and put it into the RERX file and run it, and then do the transition for there. That's not really a full transition. That's not really a full conversion. You really need to convert it into Xtra to make sure it works properly in the later versions. So I'd say, yeah, it is fully 64-bit, and it will only run in 64-bit. That's one of the benefits of it. So you want to kind of make sure it's got the extra part within the container as well. So that's report engine 9.5. So yeah, fine.
If there are no other questions, then we can wrap it up. Let's give another minute or so and see if there's something which pops up for everyone.
So we'll be sending out the recording link. Is that correct, Alessio?
Yes, we'll send the recording link. What I will try to do as well is grab a couple of these questions and just put them together with it for everyone, so that we can all remember what has been said and plan around. I think what I can also mention is to please reach out to either us or your account managers if you do have further questions which do pop up afterwards. And we'll be glad to answer them and help you out with this.
Yeah. So there's the next question there. Does Unit 4 have standard REX files for standard reports? Yes, I believe they have started. They've created some packages. Of course, I don't believe they're just going to be handed out. But if you'd like to maybe contact your support for Unit 4, and they'd be able to get you in contact with whoever you need to contact if you're asking. I don't know exactly what Unit 4 has or what they're creating.
Mhm.
So I'm not sure about the GL36 branch. Sorry.
There's a comment over here which might be interesting. Unit 4 offering an extra starter pack at a cost. Have you
That's
seen
what I
the
was talking
context of the
about.
pack? And would you suggest using this or doing our own report conversion? I haven't seen that pack yet. I'm not sure, Patrick, Tiffany, if you have.
I've
No,
heard about. When you go,
sorry, go
Tiffany?
ahead.
I
No, I was gonna say I've seen some because they did start creating them for the ERPX. From doing reports for people throughout the years, they're very particular with their invoices, their statements, their purchase orders and sales orders. So they might not be what you're wanting. And if you already have a purchase order, if it's really hard to convert, the one that they give you in the starter packs is not going to suffice for you because you obviously have major stuff that you need in your purchase orders, your sales orders. So I would say you probably wouldn't want whatever they're offering if your report is really hard to convert. And if you already have a report and it's easy to convert, you might as well just convert it than buying a starter pack. I'd say the starter packs might be good for new customers, but if you already have ARC reports, I would do them. I would convert them or have them converted. But of course, that's up to you, and you can go to your account manager or Unit 4 support if you want to check out their starter packs. They are very generic. Go ahead, Patrick.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say the same thing, to be honest with you. So it is very generic. So, and you can understand why they have to be generic because they sell them to the masses. So it's you'd be better just starting off yourself, to be honest with you.
Excellent. All right. No more questions coming up, I don't see. Hopefully I haven't missed anyone. Don't think so. But yeah, so thank you very much for everyone for joining. Thank you to Patrick and Tiffany as well. We hope to help you on your journey as well with your ARC to Xtra migration. So please do reach out if you do need any other advice or any help. Thank you, everyone, and have a lovely day further.
No problem.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.